I'm the president of the Virginia Automobile Association. It's a statewide organization that we have several hundred members. They're all garages, by the way. So they're all shops. We go after anything that's affecting our industry.
I have a degree in industrial technology, so it is a degree in shop, as I like to joke.
When people started talking about numbers, and I was like, these people are crazy. There's no way they can get that out of their shop.
How did you go from accounting to automotive? Once I walked into a shop, I just knew that this was the right spot for me, and I just couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk.
Booked a ticket, didn't have a signed purchase agreement or anything on the business yet, and figured we'll see if this is the right choice.
My biggest takeaway from coaching has been that I had to change to overcome my own fears and shortcomings, stay charged appropriately. And I find myself getting wrapped up in the story that I'm telling myself, in the sense of,
business is down. The shop operates exactly like we designed it. And sometimes it's a hard message to hear, which is a piece that I really like about that coaching group. And that closer group of friends that we talk about, they're not afraid to call you out on something. This can't happen here because. And as soon as you start that sentence that way, your mindset is completely wrong. It needs to be, I'm going to make this happen because.
From where I sit right now and from the shops with whom I've talked to about coaching, the answer is get a coach. You should have done it years ago. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. And today's topic, I've chatted a little bit with each of the guests, and I'm already fascinated about their stories and where they've landed coaches, yes or no, and how they're helping their shop. And so I'm looking forward to bringing that to you. Now, we're actually doing this new extra series in addition to the monthly panels called the Origin and Impact Series, where we're having one-on-one conversations with shop owners to hear their fuller story of how they actually got to where they're at today. And it's been very interesting. We've got Kevin on the panel today. Do not be confused with the two Kevins that were already interviewed for the Origin and Impact Series. It turns out it's a very common name for shop owners these days. And so we're going to have to get Kevin on as well, just so we can keep with our collection of Kevins for the Origin and Impact Series. But thank you for listening. And again, if you caught it, the topic for today here at the Garage Grit Podcast is about coaches for shop owners and how that's actually playing a role and which ones we like, which ones we don't like, and why. Maybe it's a matter of this is a better fit for me because of. And so my goal for everyone listening in is that they will listen to this, consider what's best for them, and help them weigh out and figure out what's next in what's the next chapter going to hold for them and for their shop, so you guys can grow, because that's the goal here, is to help everyone to advance their shop. And without further ado, let me introduce the panel. We've got Josiah, we've got Kevin, and we've got Mike. Mike, why don't you start us off from Virginia Beach? Tell us about you, tell us about your shop, and tell us about the shop size and the area that you're in. How population dense is Virginia Beach? Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Scaglione, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm down to one shop. I had five. It's a small shop. It's my original shop in Virginia Beach. It's in the heart of our little community, 4 bays. It's a very busy shop. I'm also the president of the Virginia Automobile Association. It's a statewide organization that we have several hundred members. They're all garages, by the way. So they're all shops. We go after anything that's affecting our industry.
So is it all government advocacy, or is there other benefits to being a part of that organization?
Oh, no. We have sponsors. We have member sponsors, ATI being one, that are coaches. We have equipment vendors. We have everybody that participates in our group, because they come to us because we have all the members, and because then they can solicit us at trade shows and any venue that we have.
Sure. Okay. Now, being in Virginia Beach, you've got a population jump, right? In the middle of summer season, you guys have a larger. How does that impact your shop?
It's awesome. It's the largest city in the state of Virginia.
Okay.
Land mass wise, we have a lot of population here. The only time it's during critical defense situations where we have the largest naval station
Norfolk,
in the world. So when we have a deployment of some sort, we do get a little downtick in population that are on the streets. But for the most part, it has been very consistent. I've done this for 46 years. I'm at that window to where I can, hence the reason why I've gotten rid of the others.
Okay.
Just kind of step back a little bit right now and just trying to hand the reins over to one of the employees or something.
All right. We'll have to chat about that later. Let's move on. Josiah, you're the next panel on my screen, so we'll just go with you. Tell us a little bit about you, the size of your shop, the area that you're in, and go from there.
Yes, so I'm Josiah. I have a 4-bay shop in a small town of Oley, Pennsylvania. It's rural with a lot of populated towns within 15 minutes of it. So we have a good population side. I don't actually know the number if you drew a 10-mile radius, but it's probably easily 10,000 within a 10-mile radius.
Sure.
We have.
And that's one of the things that's very interesting from a shop like yours versus Mike. No one's driving 10 to 15 miles to get to your shop.
Oh no, most of my customers are within a 1 mile to 3 mile radius
Right.
at the most.
So people are driving 15 miles to come see you. That's not a big deal. Go ahead.
Yeah, that at 10 miles is probably about the maximum reach is what I would say. 4 techs, 2 advisors, and myself. I'm at the point where I don't really have a specific role in the day-to-day operations of a shop. I just management overall. So I might be in the front, might be in the back, might be wherever throughout the day.
All right.
Been in business 5 years, and I have a business partner that good friend of mine that we bought an existing shop in 2020, and it's been an uphill road from then.
Kevin, take a turn. Tell us about your location, your shop, and your background, the shop, and the size, and go from there.
Sure. First off, there's a running joke. You can never have too many Kevins. So when you're ready to do the Kevin podcast, I'd be glad to participate.
Good.
Located in northern Minnesota. Our town has 3,000 people in it. I've got a 9-bay shop with 3 extra flat stalls in the back. The reach is probably that 10 to 15 mile distance. And in addition to automotive repair, we also do snowplow installations. We're a Western snowplow installer. So
Is that a big percentage of the business, or is that just icing on the cake in the wintertime?
when I bought the shop's been here for 44 years. I bought it 4 years ago.
Okay.
It was a snowplow shop that did automotive repair, and we flipped that. Now it's an automotive shop that puts on snowplows. With snowplow installs, it's very seasonal, of course. It's been a goal of mine to set up the automotive piece to support all of the business expenses, and then use the snowplows as icing on the cake.
Okay. Got it.
Still in a jacket, buddy.
It's
You're in Minnesota.
42 degrees.
We're in t-shirts here.
And
Short pants
sleeve.
and t-shirts.
That's funny. Here in Pennsylvania, we're just in between. I'm wearing a long sleeve, but the temperature just dropped because it decided to rain this morning. But yeah, but we're on the cusp. I can appreciate that, Mike, because just this weekend, I was like, I'm not 20 anymore, so it's not appropriate for me to take my shirt off. But it was short t-shirt weather or light t-shirt weather at best. But anyway, one of the reasons that I like to do this little round robin exercise is when people are listening and they hear some of your thoughts later on, they're going to be like, I'm in the same situation as Mike or Josiah or Kevin. And so I'm going to actually, because of the topic today, I'm going to actually ask a little bit more about each of your backgrounds so that if people have that perspective, they can relate. Kevin, you haven't been in the automotive industry your entire life. Some of the people that I've talked to, in fact, the most recent Kevin, he was actually at his dad's shop. And the most recent Kevin for the Origin and Impact series was at his dad's shop when he was like 12 or 13. And he was around the shop doing things, right? Your background is very different. So why don't you share a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, Kevin?
Sure. I came from outside the industry. I was a quality lab manager at one of our local mines here. Always wanted to own my own business. Not really a stranger around the garage. I grew up racing snowmobiles and spending a lot of late nights working on car stereo stuff.
Okay, good.
I have a degree in industrial technology, so it is a degree in shop, as I like to joke.
Yeah.
So I'm no stranger to it, but it was just a really good fit right off the bat, jumping into a very established business and one that does a lot of revenue.
How did you connect with the prior owner?
I have a friend that puts in remote car starters, and he'd done that for the past 20 some odd years, and he was working as a subcontractor at this shop. Remember, small town, 3,000 people. It's
okay.
Everybody knows everybody. The old owner had asked him if he had
Right.
any idea of anybody that would be interested in purchasing a shop. And about a year later, we signed on the dotted line.
That's very interesting. Mike, there's your key. When you are ready to retire, you just got to talk to car starter installer, or probably more likely the association that you're affiliated with. Okay, Josiah, what's your background?
So started out at 16 in a starter repair shop as a starter rebuilder.
Okay.
And a couple years later, moved to a automotive mechanic shop, worked there as a mechanic and then as a service advisor for 8 years before we bought our business.
All right. So you've been in the industry for quite a bit. All right. When did you start in the industry?
1979, in the industry back then, we called them service stations.
Okay.
So we were pumping gas and doing repairs. That slowly evolved to me just buying a couple of service stations and continuing on with that. And then, as you've all seen it, an attrition takes place with these gas stations, service stations. They've gone from service stations to convenience stores. We did have that big flip here in Virginia Beach in the late 80s.
Okay.
And when they did that, I stepped away and bought a couple of more and then turned them back into shops and literally got rid of the gas pumps. And
Right.
which was the writing on the wall there.
Yeah. So 79, that was years
79.
after the whole odd and even license plate gas.
Oh, no, we
purchasing.
did that as well, too. Oh, yeah, I was in there.
All right.
That is a big show. We had lines of traffic out into the street because one of the locations was in a main drag to Nag's Head. And it was just people were coming in offering you big money to just get 10 gallons of gas.
Right.
And you were on allocation, so you couldn't sell anything.
Right.
I know what they're talking about, but I wasn't alive doing it.
Back in the day, we had oil embargoes, and when they did that, they blocked all of the oil, and you could not sell gasoline. They would only give you so much. You would either run out, and you wouldn't have any for a week or so, depending on how much allocation they gave you, and then you could start selling gasoline again. But you're in such a high demand for gasoline here, and we've got 500,000 people just in Virginia Beach. That's not counting surrounding cities and in any area. So people they're just passing through our little location.
Yeah.
And we're a destination point.
And so I was young enough I don't remember the details. I was too young to remember the ins and outs of it, but I vaguely recall some of it. And I knew
Don't
that
tell me I'm the old man in this group.
but I remember it was odd and even. Was it government mandated as far as how much gas each person could get, or was that based on how many gallons were left at your location?
Yeah, we would cap it. After that ended, we then went to gasoline crested over $1 here. Just Kevin and Josiah, we're just going to gasoline crested over $1. We had Tocom pumps out there.
Yeah.
They would only go to 99 cents, 0.9. So 99.9 was as much as we could put out on the sticker out there onto the
It's
street.
Y2K problem all the way.
Yeah, here we are with this thing. So we had to then start selling gas by the liter. And America was trying to flip us into the metric system. So they pushed it into the liter. So we were selling it by the liter. We just want to learn. We know 4 quarts are in a gallon, but we don't know liters are in a gallon. You try to recite that back to a customer. So they would be like, how much gas did I get?
Yeah.
And 3.785412.
Yeah.
And then you'd multiply that all out by whatever they purchased. But we had to do that for years until they updated all the pumps, which was a massive thing.
That's so interesting. Yeah, no, here in the U.S., we love the metric system.
We have no metric system. Dive community, they do it in the ocean. They tell you to dive down 20, 30 meters.
And actually, if you look on like a bottle of water, it actually will say it. And the other thing that's converted into metric is ice cream, because they're trying to hide the fact that they're no longer half-gallon containers. They're 1.5. Yeah, I noticed because I eat ice cream. But anyway, back to auto repair. I was like, this does not feel like the right weight. So anyway, were you able to get more customers in the service side because of those lines? People were just sitting there. So, you were able to.
I was fortunate that we were in a main drag, travel drag. So this was right on the main drag to go to Nag's Head.
Okay.
So we lived in the surrounding area right there. Everybody passed through. So if they broke down, you were in a catch-22. You either spent the night in one of the hotels, fixed your car, and got you back on the road.
I'm picturing Mike actually changing one of his bays to like a bed and a nightstand.
You have no idea. I literally would work that and then work all night long with the police department and then bringing them back into the shop and just keep on working.
Now, when you started in the business, was coaching a thing for repair shops?
Not at all.
Not at all. And so when did coaching become a thing?
Yeah, I would say that I got my first coach in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And was there a particular organization or was he independent?
ATI.
All right. And how long were you a part of ATI in the mid-90s?
They were each several year stints. We did it for a couple of years. And you would come in as a graduate. So they'd cut you a break on some of the fees.
Okay.
So we did that several years. And it was, hindsight, in my industry. I wish I had had it early on in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. It was just a blessing.
Because there were lessons that you
just for
didn't
them-
have to learn the hard way. You could have learned the easy way.
Correct. The metrics that were implemented that we put to use right away
Okay.
just made money versus trying it on your own and finding out, oh, that doesn't work quite as well,
Okay.
and losing money.
So you did it for a couple of years, you stopped, and then a few years later you went back.
Yeah, we did. In my experience, you'll learn enough to get yourself out of the hole and move on. And you learn quite a bit, actually. And then you can apply that. And then another 5 years, 8 years down the road, if you can go back in and take what we call boot camp courses and reevaluate and see that you're still within the right metrics. Because the industry is always changing.
Sure.
So we have completely changed the industry all the time. So I'd go back in, take something else, take another boot camp course, and make sure that I'm still viable when I flip open and the girls log in. Make sure my metric systems are priced out. Am I correct? Is my labor margin correct? Anything.
All right. So you're using it as like a wellness visit at a doctor.
Absolutely. It's a benchmark for me to check all the boxes. And then, yeah, wellness is probably that's a great way to put it.
And and you're not a part of an ATI 20 group right now.
I am not.
Okay. And is it on your near future?
Yeah, I would recommend the next person as a 20. It's probably a little late. I guess I fought the 20 groups all along, and I probably should not have, but I'm still old school. You guys are not. So old school, we didn't share information. It was bad enough for me to pry information out of me and I was joining ATI way back in the day.
Okay.
I wasn't going to convey my numbers to you. I have an accounting background. And I know, how did you go from accounting to automotive? Once I walked into a shop, I just knew that this was the right spot for me. And I just couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk. So
Okay.
I stayed in the automotive world.
Were you a mechanic before that? You had an accounting background, but were you also servicing cars
Yeah.
in the mid 70s before you bought this one?
No, I was just kicking in school and
Got it.
I was working part-time, and then it evolved into
Okay.
full-time, and then school started suffering. And then I was like, I should probably try one or the other.
The 70s were, I know that in my age group and then the next 20 years, they were constantly pushing, you got to go to school, you got to go to college, got to go to college. And I feel like that actually has hurt this industry as far as bringing up more qualified, skilled mechanics, because the focus is
Yes.
just go get a 4-year degree and then go get a master's degree and then go get a graduate degree. And those things are all well and good, but they were selling it so hard that they missed opportunities for people who are really great with their hands, who potentially would be making more money if they had started the way Josiah did at 16. So Josiah, do you currently have a coach?
Yes. So we were with 180 Viz, started that in 23.
Okay.
Just before that, I knew there were coaches out there. ATI had come into this previous shop I was at, and they were very high pressure, and it turned me off. So I was like, I just refused to entertain even the idea of talking to them again. And
that was it. That was their sales pitch. That's a red flag. I need to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Came and they were trying to break it down into how much it costs per week and all this stuff. This is how much it costs. You want me to sign up for 4 years? Because at that point, it was a 4-year. Went to 4-year contract. And
I don't even know. Are they still doing 4-year contracts, or is it still, it's annual now?
Yeah.
Okay.
it could have just been the salesperson. Whoever it was, they were very high pressure. They came in they didn't take no for an answer. They came in 3 or 4 times. It's like, now we're not interested. And then I had met Rick White through what was Super Saturday training. I didn't realize because at the time I was not the business owner. I was at the front counter. So it was interesting. I was getting more active on Facebook, and Shop Hackers, Shop Fixes Facebook, the public one, popped up, and I was like, join the page, and people started talking about numbers, and I was like, these people are crazy. There's no way they can get that out of their shop. Got onto, at the time, Changing the Industry podcast was pretty fresh, so I was listening to that and started hearing, oh wait, maybe I do need to learn something. And I vividly remember it was in 23, we were working. I probably put in a 70, 80-hour week, and I have children with health issues. That's a whole long story, but I was just tired out and overwhelmed, and was sat down with my business partners like, why are we working so hard and we don't have the profits to show for it? Like, we can't actually take money out of the business, or not much money out of the business, to pay ourselves above and beyond our salary. Why do we even own the business? And that's what started the process of looking for a coach.
You mentioned something about Super Saturday.
Yes. The training,
Tell us about
Super
that.
Saturday. Super Saturday, smaller event, but it's similar to STA Vision, those types of events. It's just in southeastern PA, near Philadelphia, put on by Mid-Atlantic Auto Care Association. For a while, it was just one day. They would call it Super Saturday because it was on Saturday. Now it's a 3-day event.
Okay. Okay.
They have traders come in. So Rick White, trying to think who else was here last year. I can't remember. I think Cecil I know there was Shop Fix kind of trade there this past year on the management side, and they have a lot of technician trade.
Okay. So, Kevin, if I understand your story right, COVID happened, and then 4 or 5 months later, you got this great idea to own a business because somebody contacted you who was selling their shop, right? J&M was for sale. And then you started just doing your due diligence, and you came across Shop Fix in January of 2021. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's correct. January 21, same thing like Josiah said on the Facebook group or something, came across the hackers page and saw they were having an event in January. And I figured, who better to let me know what I'm doing wrong and doing right and guide me in a direction than people that are already in the industry. Booked a ticket, didn't have a signed purchase agreement or anything on the business yet, and figured we'll see if this is the right choice.
Okay. All right. Nice.
Yeah, I've been with ShopFix right from the beginning, 2021.
Okay. And do you have an individual coach, or is it all group dynamic?
Each person that joins has an individual coach, and then we get grouped into, they call them a tribe. I suppose it's anywhere between 20 and 40 people in that tribe. We do conference calls on a weekly basis with the group, as well as some individual coaching. And then about 4 times a year, there's a group gathering where everybody ends up in Nashville or one of the area suburbs for kind of a group conference with all the other tribes.
Okay. Now, inside your tribe, does it work much like the 20 group where you're sharing a lot of seemingly confidential information?
Yeah, it's kind of everything is out in the open. It's what you're willing to share is about how is what controls your growth.
The more you share, the more you grow.
Right. Yeah. Showing your belly and showing your soft side and showing your, like you said, belly. Right.
I see a shark attack.
Says the guy from Virginia Beach. All right.
Yeah.
And with ShopFix, how much time are you spending on a regular basis with your coach on an individual, like one-on-one type conversation?
It's usually based on need.
What I'm really trying to find out from all three of you real quick is your opinion of how much time. It's not just, okay, I'm going to get coached. Now I have to write a check to this person. That doesn't do the trick, right? You actually need to spend one-on-one time, and you also need to invest your time in addition to that, doing the learning, and then actually, as Mike suggested, spending the time to apply all that you've learned. So how much commitment, that's really what I'm asking, is how much commitment is involved in ShopFix? Talk to me about your one-on-one time with your coach and how much commitment off of those meetings you're investing in this. Go ahead.
Sure. The one-on-one time with the coach kind of depends on demand, where you're at with your shop. When I started, it was weekly. Now it's down to once a month. And that's basically based on kind of the progress of the shop. Your numbers look like, how stable is your shop, things like that. We do a tribe call once a week. So you've got a coaching call once a month, tribe call once a week. And then quite honestly, this group of people that I'm involved with, a lot of them are my friends. So it's nothing to pick up my phone and give one of them a call. We don't do a lot of Euro stuff up here. So I can give my friend Rob a call who works on nothing but Euro cars. Hey, what do you see with this BMW 3 Series? Here's the problems I've got with it. And he can point us in that direction. That piece, I think, is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the individual coaching piece. The coaching piece is nice because it gives you the direction. It's the people in your group that push you towards making sure you're held on course, if that makes sense.
Okay. So the coach isn't the sole accountability measure. It's the team that you're a part of, or tribe, or the 20 group. Does Rick also have some sort of group dynamic, Josiah?
There's 3 different main groups. He's focused more on group coaching than individual coaching. We do bi-weekly 2-hour coaching calls, but it's everybody in the group. And
You said twice a month?
twice a month.
Okay.
Twice a month, 2 hours each, coaching calls with the group. And then you can set up individual, like one-on-one sessions as needed. We have access to the calendar, so I can just go on, set it up. Or, I mean, there's a couple of coaches that work under Rick or work with Rick. So we're assigned to one of them, more or less. And we can reach out, text, or call, whatever we need to. Then we also have it's fairly new, it's a small group. So there's 3 shop owners in the group, and we'll do a 1-hour call every other week as well. So once a week we're on. If you need anything throughout the week, there's 3 1-hour Zoom calls just scheduled that you can go on. There's a coach in there, and you just, I need normal questions.
So you said 3 to 5 people inside your group. And I'm thinking about the flip side of that, which is the 30 to 40 in the tribe from ShopFix. And I'm thinking about the connections that you're looking at. I imagine you don't have friendships with all 40, Kevin. I imagine that you're tighter with probably 3 to 5, because there's only so much room in our brains as far as being able to make connection points anyway. Now,
So
if only 3 to 5, go ahead, Josiah.
The 3 is just our, what we call pods, but it's a small group. The actual group coaching, there is generally 20 to 40 people on call.
Oh, that's interesting. It's got like a smaller group within the group that he does. Okay.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Kevin, you want to chime in on the tribe? Do you have a tighter connection with just a smaller group of them? And was that just natural, or was that actually systematic?
No, I think that's pretty natural. And that could be said in just about any facet of my life. You get good friends and you get acquaintances and everything else. And then you have Facebook friends. And so, you kind of gravitate to people who are in similar situations. I'm in a small town. I'm going to probably gravitate towards people that understand the small town thinking that go along with that. I can't fathom some of the pieces of people that have 4 shops on their block. It's mind blowing to me. So that piece is also nice because it gives me a good look at kind of the industry as a whole. Some of the problems they're facing are going to be way different than what I'm facing.
Yeah. Mike, I'm sorry, I haven't come back to you in a little bit.
I'm not at work. I can be okay. I'm calm.
Okay. You mentioned, though, that you weren't a part of the 20s, right? You just had an individual coach. That was a separate dynamic. It wasn't a required piece. Do you have any, maybe in your association with people who are in the 20s, and do they rave about them?
Oh yeah. So there's a lot to be said for it. I'm not even with a coaching group currently, right? Stepped away. And ironically, you just talked about Rick White. We just interviewed him in our state organization. So literally we're going to be probably soliciting his services with our group and have him do a kind of a traveling roadshow, if you will, through the state of Virginia with our guys. And you're right. He said he'll train 1, he'll train 20, 30, 40. It doesn't really matter to him. But I guess the real takeaway is when they talk, we have a business development group locally, just amongst the Tidewater area of our Napa Auto Care centers. So we're all pretty tight knit with that. But you can fall back on any one of our guys. As president of the association, I can call any one of my members. If somebody breaks down in Virginia, I can pick up the phone and find you a shop somewhere that we can get something squared away at a reputable shop.
Okay.
But when I was young, I should say, you're working 80, 100 hours a week. Life is miserable. I remember the one time that I came into my house and I walked over to my wife, sweating. It was 8, 9 o'clock when I get home because I had a meeting. I put down some pamphlets, some advertising stuff. This is like 95 or something like that. And it was tickets to go to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And my wife looked at me and I said, "Do you have your passport?" And she said, "No." I said, "Get your passport because we're leaving." And she was like, "Wait, we can't leave the shop." At the time I had several shops. "We can't leave." And I said, "I don't care what happens. I'll put it back together when I get home. But we are taking time off." It had been years since we had taken a vacation. And I was just like Josiah. I was just working my hiney off, not making any money. or just beginning to make a little bit of money. And I was like, because I haven't really jumped into a training coach group. And then finally, when I got one, game changer, set price matrix, set labor rates, the development of a DVI program. If you haven't done it, the carpet underneath everything that we do.
Amen.
The DVI programs.
Yes.
What
DVI
program are you using right
programs.
now?
We are using Bolt-On.
Okay.
And we just last night I was interviewing with Auto Vitals.
Okay.
We're currently using super simple to use. It's just that old analogy, a picture's 1,000 words. It's literally a quick video and a picture could explain everything to the consumer. You don't look like somebody just trying to get their money.
Right. And actually, I mentioned about I was about to mention the video side of it as well. I think that's even more powerful a lot of times because yeah, it's just that much more real. Kevin and Josiah, you're using a DVI program as well?
Yeah, we use Shopware as our shop. We just use their built-in DVI program. We were with Bolt-On and Mitchell and chose to go with a newer system. It's been liking that.
And was that coach advised or was that your own independent decision making?
Both. Starting to see that there were certain limitations. Mitchell being a server-based, not cloud-based software, was running into. And so got onto coaching, started talking to other shop owners and realizing what they were able to do, what they were capable of versus what I was. And I was like, okay, it's time. And made the jump.
Kevin, you were nodding your head.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We had Bolt-On with Mitchell. We currently have TechMetric and we use their DVI. Same thing that Josiah talked about, the ability to check it from my house, check it from my phone, and not being tied to a server was instrumental with that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice, but you can't check it from anywhere. I don't care how bright your phones are. When you're outside on Virginia Beach, on the actual beach, sun is just you just can't see the screen. And I got to share this story because we talked a little bit about the age thing. And so my wife was embarrassed because she saw me on the sidelines at my son's football game. And I had my sunglasses on and I had a pair of readers on top of my sunglasses because I was trying to see my phone. So she went out and bought me a pair of sunglasses that actually have the readers built in. This helps a lot. So anyway, highly recommend those. Was the decision to make the switch to TechMetric largely coach and group or tribe? Was you heard from them? They said, this is what you want to use. You probably heard like 6 different answers, no? From 40 people.
I looked at different platforms. We've been at TechMetric for 3 years now, so they were up and coming, and it was just the choice for us. I think any of the other, and Mitchell's a very good platform too. I don't have anything negative to say about Mitchell. It's just a matter of that flexibility and then the texting portion and whatever else fit way better into our outlook. I think it's more of a personalized choice. Friends that are on Shopware or any of the other pieces that are out there.
So yours was not heavily influenced by your tribe?
No, I wouldn't say it was driven by a coach.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Now, how do you feel about, and as I'm doing all of the asking of questions to each of you, I want to start encouraging guys to feel free. If you have a thought, if Mike says something like, I'm curious a little bit more, if you guys have some questions specifically for Mike about why he chose to back off. His attitude is coaches are great. You need them. And then you learn all that you can. You take a year or 2 off while you're applying what you've learned. And then you check back in for a wellness visit. Do I have that right, Mike?
Yep.
Josiah and Kevin, you're not doing that, right? You're in this, second year into the coaching. It sounds to me like you're not making any plans to change that. You're going to stay a part of the groups, the pods, and the tribes. What questions do you have for Mike as far as to learn from his experience with that? Do you think it's ATI specific?
My biggest takeaway from coaching has been that I had to overcome my own fears and shortcomings to charge appropriately. And I find myself getting wrapped up in the story that I'm telling myself in the sense of, business is down. It's just because X. It's just because Y. And I move on. Like, how do you keep yourself from doing that would be my question, Mike.
So it's keep it simple. I just keep everything simple. I can get immersed into it really quick. We did go with ATI, and I understand they are very high pressure. This was way back in the day, probably when you were born. And they came in, they put it together. It was a 2-year stint, the first one. I felt like I I'm kind of like you of probably, I'm in the shop every day. I turn wrenches every day. So I have my finger on the pulse depending on which shop I'm at the time. So I'm running around and I can read the room really quick once I'm in there. And then as long as I set it all up, everything seemed to be, the numbers were good and I could watch everything. It is the one thing with Mitchell that I don't like. I can't see it from my house, which is a negative as far as the ease of operation. And my guys like it. I've always been Napa Tracks, but it's taken them forever to develop their system to be really useful for us. I've been at Auto Care Center since 94.
Okay.
I don't know. It's easy for me to keep going and then take a boot camp course, step back into it to make sure that I'm still within my means.
So you don't find yourself falling into the trap of, okay, everybody's down, the economy is bad, or everyone is down.
I'll just tell you that I am so blessed that we've had a thriving business. We're not like you guys in a small town community. We've got population density here. So even during COVID, I never laid off one employee. I kept all my employees. We had a downturn for about a month and a half, and then it literally took off, and we have set new records every year going forward. It's just been the age of a car. They're keeping them longer. They're going to break down. No, it's no big deal. You're going to fix that car. You're not going to go buy and spend $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 on a new car. If I hand you $1,000 ticket, I'm blessed. I have customers that come to me, throw the keys at me, fix my car, call me when it's done. But for me to rack up $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 bill, these customers have been with me so long, I can just say, here's your ticket and your car's fixed. And they're like, Roger that. And they pay you.
Okay. Trust factor's been built.
It's a unique situation, but we have such a good community around us.
Okay. All right.
We do participate in a trade fair for the school trying to recruit, technicians, because we're in such a bad limelight with today's industry. So you did talk about that. If you turn on your TV and you watch investigative TV and there's a murder, it's always a mechanic and a grease monkey in a shop, and that's where the body's been killed, or that's where the guy was. He's always got a shop rag hanging out of his back pocket. They just paint this bad scenario. And now it's like anything on TV. And when you look at it, it's the mechanic that did it. But he's wiping his little greasy hands. It's always painted us in a bad light there when we see each other. And we should have, 30 years ago, if we could have, here we are walking around with laptops and scanning cars. You still get dirty, but if you do a lot of programming, we do a lot of programming. So if you do all that stuff, well, you're not even getting dirty. You're just making and programming.
I think another thing that has hurt the industry is shop owners that aren't willing to charge appropriately. They don't have the income to pay appropriately. And if you just start doing research on the average income for a automotive mechanic technician, I don't know where it is right now, but it's somewhere in the range of, I think 30 to 50,000 is what will pop up, which I don't have any technician working other than my apprentice working for less than 50,000 a year. They're all making over that. So we call that, our techs are double that. Yeah. But it's called the emotional bank account. It's your emotional bank account as a shop owner. You always get in front of a ticket and you're like, oh man, I can't charge them that much money. When you want to edit it down a little bit or give something away to bring it into something that you feel. But the minute you hire a service advisor who is not emotionally connected to whatever, and you say, here, put this on ticket and this on ticket, a service advisor takes you out of the equation. Right. I stay in the shop, work, and then they broadcast the bill. Then you get on the boat and we go fishing. I'm curious.
It's important to have that.
Sorry.
So go ahead, Josiah.
I was just going to say, tell me, not being in the industry, did you have to slate the emotional discounting part of that?
It's what held me back and made me work those 80 and 100 hours, because I felt that when I was growing up, if you handed somebody a $250 ticket, oh my God, I would pass that off to somebody. Here, you tell him. I'm not telling him. You tell him. I can't tell this guy how much money he's getting ready to spend. This is late 70s, early 80s. But today, I wouldn't even blink an eye to my customers for $200, $300, $500. Your car's done. Where's your checkbook? Where's your credit card?
Right. But as you pointed out, you're not the one actually having that conversation. It's a service advisor.
Oh yeah, I call. Whenever one of my service advisors, if they're like, okay, I built the ticket, I'm like, give it to me. Just hand me the phone. Let me talk to him real quick. And I'm like, hey, man, yeah, it sucks to be you, but your car is going to be X amount of dollars, but we'll have it fixed today. Yep. And fix my car.
All right. I'm sorry, but I
Tell
want to
you, I'm
jump
in
in
it.
here. I want to, because we just said that you had emotional discounting, right? And then
Oh,
you
yeah,
brought in
this
the
was
service
way back
advisor.
in the
And now it's
day
come
when
full
I
circle
first-
where your service advisor is being trained by you to not be emotionally attached.
Yeah, they're already trained. They come to you already trained up and you just school them in selling jobs. So I'm the problem. I, as the shop owner, was the problem early on because I had the emotional bank account and I couldn't see myself. I had to discount. I felt like I had to discount something every time. And then once I got the coaching and he said, nope, you need a service advisor. You can't do and you can't be everything. So back in the day, we would work in a service station and you would turn wrenches on a car, run outside, pump some gas, come back up front, run the tickets, do whatever you wanted to do. Today, it's not like that anymore. So let the service advisors handle everything.
It's going to be important that you've got the right service advisors in the equation.
Absolutely.
Kevin, I'm curious, did you you purchased a shop that was already existing? It's somewhat a common story, especially in a small town, that your predecessor was also with their own emotional bank account. Was that an issue? Did you have to bump prices? Were you coached to bump prices when you first took it over in 21?
When I took over here, the previous owner had several 20 groups prior to this. I think he was with Elite for a while and also ATI. So he had that background. He was the guy spinning wrenches that turned into a business owner. And as good as he was turning a wrench, he's become that good of a business owner. A lot of the discussions I had with the previous owner were related to running a business rather than getting a car fixed, it's a neat way to step into it. And you're talking about labor rates and parts matrices and bundling jobs and preventative maintenance, and those types of pieces of a ticket rather than here's where the toolboxes are and here's where we keep this. And as far as changing a whole lot, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. The coaching piece came in basically for me, and I think Mike touched on that. He said that the owner's the problem. Fix the owner, fix the shop, right? It's pretty easy to look everywhere else and see all these problems, but it's what the shop owner allows. It's what the shop owner sets the standard and kind of what we tolerate. The shop operates exactly like we designed it. And sometimes that's a hard message to hear, which is a piece that I really like about that coaching group and that closer group of friends we talk about. They're not afraid to call you out on some of your BS.
I know like
heaps of
Brooks'
that.
favorite saving is your standard is what you allow, not what you say it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. So with the pods, Josiah, how close are the other shops? Are they all southeastern PA?
No,
Or
they're
are they
both in
across the country?
Kansas. They're both in Kansas. It depends. We switch it up every so often that we switch groups just to get to know each other. Where I had one, the first group there was a shop owner in California, one in Nebraska, and Chicago and me. So you're all spread out, different, some people in city, some in rural. The pods are designed for accountability. We put in the group what we're working on, and the pods are just to say, are you working on it? What are you struggling with? How talk through that.
Okay. Now, why can't you just do that with your business partner?
Better accountability. So somebody outside of the shop, it's easy for me to make excuses to my business partner. And you'd be like, okay, yeah, that's what's happening. When you're talking to a shop owner who's also in it and they're like, yeah, you're just feeding me excuses. Let's keep rolling.
I think even a business
Nice.
partner is probably too close
Amen.
to give you an outside perspective. And that's like I talked about a little bit earlier, big city, little town. What I ran into, like you said, Josiah, you end up making a lot of excuses. This can't happen here because, and as soon as you start that sentence that way, your mindset is completely wrong. It needs to be, I'm going to make this happen because.
Okay. Now that you've all been a part of coaching groups, one of the questions that I have is, should you be, when you're interviewing, if a shop owner who doesn't have a coach now and is interviewing, should they be asking for a coach that has experience with small town or city to match? Because if somebody just has small town experience and then they come to Mike and they say, here's what you should be doing, he might look at him funny because he might say 10 to 15 miles. What are you talking about? All of my customers are coming from one. That's a marketing type perception issue, but I imagine there's other pieces to that equation that apply. So are you, when you're interviewing, are you actually trying to push back or dig deeper to find out their experience with population densities that match your shop?
For me, I would say no. Most coaches should have a broad enough network that they are working with shops in both scenarios and that. I don't know how each individual group works. I don't know if some groups have coaches that are more fine-tuned to rural or not. I don't see that it being as big of a deal. A little bit of the minutia of how you do it, but it doesn't really change the broad picture of how you run a shop. For me, when I was interviewing coaches, I was more looking at morals, ethics, and if I disagree with some of your foundational teachings, then I don't know that I want to sit there and do coaching with you, because I'm always going to question everything that you push down the line. But so it was more finding a coach that resonated with me and who I am.
No, I'm sorry. I might be digging a little bit too deep, but you mentioned about ATI and how it just hit you wrong because of how pushy they were and how that particular salesperson was, here are the numbers. This is why it makes sense. Just sign now, sign now. Was there anything else that they were trying to, did they give you a little bit of here's what we're also going to be teaching? And then you were like, no, that's wrong?
They did. At the time, I would have what I thought was possible. I would have said, we called them, that doesn't work here, would have been my whole thing. But yeah, maybe that works on the main line in the city, but that doesn't work here. It took realizing hey, there's other shops out there that are in more rural, whatever, that are doing this. So if they're not making excuses, why not?
All right. So what's your advice, Mike, as far as someone who's trying to find out whether or not they should have a shop coach or not? What questions should they be asking and to whom they should ask?
I think Josiah said it right. Just find one that you're a company that you're really comfortable with, because you are going to
show your belly.
Bear all. Yeah. Right. You're going to bear all when you do this. And they're going to look at your numbers mainly, and they're going to say, what the heck? Why are you giving this away? You need to fix this line right here. Or you may have multiple things. And it may come down to them looking at it, this employee is not being productive. And then you as a shop owner have to make that call and go, shit, I got to fire this guy. See, there's the first cuss word this whole broadcast. Damn it. I said I was going to try to be, not have that garage lingo in this whole thing, not drop the F-bomb the whole time. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of hard calls that you're going to have to do. One of them is numbers, which is, for me, was the easiest thing to fix, but the emotional bank account stepped in front of that, and I couldn't get a grasp until I put somebody between me and the numbers. And then the second one was, where are the problems in the shop? And the shop problems are usually an employee or something you're doing wrong. Like you said, Kevin, it's your business model is you're opening the door for them to do the same and cause you problems. And you're just grieving over the problems that you've already put on the wall. And the only fix is to go in there and change your mindset and, or maybe eliminate an employee or so, whatever that bad person is. And, or it might be yourself. So then you step back. For me, I had to step back and get back into the shop. Not that I'm not good with customers. I am, but I just didn't want to be connected to the invoicing of it.
Okay.
Now, a coaching program, I wish I had it early on.
All right. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, what about you? What kind of questions would you recommend somebody who's thinking about getting a coach? How would you direct them to evaluate the different coaches that are out there?
I'm going to preface that by saying I get that statement a lot where I talk about joining a coaching company before I even took over the business. Everybody says, man, I wish I would have done that. I'd be way further ahead. I'd be way better off. I did this the hard way for how many years in a row? I didn't know any different. So it was a little bit by accident. Finding a coaching company, I would just say find one that works. Find somebody you jive with. Find somebody that'll hold you accountable and point out what they think you should do differently. point out what works, and give you a broad look. At the end of the day, it's parts on cars. It's a math problem from a financial piece of it. You got to get to the end of this road to see what comes out of it. But there's nothing here that can't be worked through, or somebody's already done it or had that problem or ended up in court over something. And it's nice to have the group to bounce things off of like that. So find a coaching group that'll do that for you.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on that? So it sounds like you're finding the overall organization, and then are you actually asking them to, hey, can you send me a couple coaches so I can see which one I like better? Or do they just pick one and hand them to you? I don't even know how that works.
With ShopFix, they do an onboarding or a pre-interview. They see where you're at with your business. They match it up to some of the coaches' skills. Worked when I joined anyway.
Okay.
It was, here's where he's at, here's the issues he's seeing, and then here's a coach that's good at addressing that. I actually switched coaches about halfway through my journey. It was one of these ideas where I'm going to go with this coach because I think there's a little bit more of a connection.
Oh, you were able to switch, and they're both a part of ShopFix.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Mike, was it just a salesperson for you with ATI?
Just like Kevin said, there's an onboarding where they just solicit information from you, and then they connect you to one of their coaches that would actually fit your application better. And then I had a gentleman by the name of Tom, and Tom, we worked well together. You have to expose yourself to this to make this work. It's harder for me in the business. You always kept all of your numbers and everything to yourself.
Yeah.
So that's, as a new business owner today, though, it's recommended. I'm sure it's easier for these guys to expose themselves to that kind of stuff. It is easy for me today, but I've already gone down the road a handful of times.
And for me, seeing other shop owners sharing numbers, that like in our group, it's whatever. You ask anybody any number and they'll tell you whatever that is. There's no secrets there. It's just seeing that modeled out. It was easy to be like, okay, this is where we're at. So it's embarrassing at times because you're looking over at somebody else and they're way ahead of you. But in reality, until you are honest about where you're at and what you're doing, you really can't get a clear picture of how to move away from where you're at. So there's somebody out there listening, they're embarrassed when they say, hey, I know we're way behind what other people are talking about. So what? At least you know where you're at. Let's move forward from there.
Yeah, I know they base everything on labor rates early on. What's your labor rate? We're in such a tight area. There's probably within a mile radius of my shop, at least a half a dozen shops. But you can't do any colluding to find out what their labor rate is, but you can ask, and they solicit all the time. Hey, what's your labor rate? Was it $100 an hour, $150 an hour, $200 an hour? Everything was back in the time. They would do your matrix. And then if you weren't right there, buddy, we need to go up. You go, I can't go up $40 on my labor rate. That's just not going to work. I feel I'm raping the customer. Today, we do it twice a year.
You raise your rate twice a year?
Twice a year.
Interesting.
Yeah. January and then June.
Okay.
Now, out
so
of curiosity, do you use a percentage? How do you calculate that?
Depending on, so this year we had a pretty steeper jump just because of when you look at minimum wages going up. So the cost matrix for everybody to come in. So when that comes up, I have to then match for my little GS workers. So you can't have a GS worker that's making $15 an hour, and then one of your C-techs is making $18 an hour. It's just not going to work for them mathematically. They're going to be like, I'm going to go somewhere else. I can go across the street and stock shelves at Food Lion or Kroger and make $19 an hour or $21. So now you have to start looking at your price matrix as far as your labor rate time. So you have to adjust that accordingly.
you mentioned GS worker. So you have government contracts?
No, GS, general service.
Oh, general service.
We do a lot of fleet work as well.
Okay.
General GS.
I just wanted to clarify that it was either general service or government contract type setup, but I got you. All right, good. I don't know that I caught your answer was you look at everything and you just do what you have to do. So it's not a standard 1%, 2%, $5 bump, $25 bump, but you dated yourself by suggesting that at one point it was $100 an hour. Definitely a little bit ago.
We were at $80 an hour when we bought the shop. So that's
Okay.
labor rate.
Okay.
What now?
150.
Okay.
And we start at 150. Let's say
Right.
that. And
Nice.
Kevin's being really quiet over there because we're in Minnesota.
We're at 138. I should probably bump it. But we also run a labor matrix. So as the jobs get longer in time, that labor rate actually ramps up. So it's variable. And we don't sell based off labor rate. We package it. You don't ask what a pepperoni and sausage and cheese and the crust and everything else cost. And your
that'd be
break job
hilarious.
is $475.
They get their $25 large cheese and pepperoni pizza and they want to break down on the invoice.
I'd rather bring a T-bone into a steak joint and see if they could grill it for me because
Right, there you go.
I can buy it cheaper down the street.
Oh,
Does
that's
your
something.
guys' software automatically? I know Mitchell has the ability to do, per the age of the vehicle, automatically add up to say 20%. You can go, you can set it whatever you want.
Yeah.
So as per the age of the vehicle, which is a plus in the industry as well too. And you can either keep that or pass that to the technician as well. So it'll add, if it's an hour job, it'll say 1.2. So it automatically bumps it depending on the age of the car.
Yeah, TechMetric
Because
will do a
there's a
labor.
lot of,
It'll do a labor bump, but then it also does a labor matrix. Break jobs an hour. If it's a water pump and it's 3 hours, your actual dollar, your $138 labor rate is now 145. So it actually add up.
But does it also ramp it up on the age of the vehicle?
I don't have anything set that way.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on what it is, we'll have different labors for the different types. But I know the percentage, yes, we can do that by age, but I hadn't bothered. I just have one set flat bump across the board.
Now, are these ideas on how to price and how often to raise your price a result of being prodded by your coach?
it was at the beginning, my labor rate was way too low. And so when I when I changed platforms, and the ability to add that in there, because you take a technician, you're working on a car, and there's a guy named Murphy that comes in and he shows up at work every day as soon as you open the door, and Murphy's there to mess things up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So anytime there's going to be, if you take a car that's 15 years old, you're going to touch something and it's not going to come apart easily. And so now we need to add time to that, and to call a customer back and say, oh, by the way, I need another $300-400 on this $1,000 ticket. They might get a little upset with you. So a price matrix done correctly that adds that little time in there to buffer it, it's a big plus.
Okay. All right. If somebody is, we don't have anyone on this particular panel who are just absolutely against coaches because of their experiences with coaches. As some of you already know, we've got a Facebook page for the Garage Crate podcast. And what we're building there is the opportunity for people to continue the conversation from the panel throughout the next few weeks inside that group. And so if you have questions about a particular coach or coaching group, you're welcome to ask or share those stories. But if you also have opposite views of anyone on the panel, I just want to be very clear. Feel free to share those. We won't be yelling. We'll just be polite and cordial. But I'd be interested in hearing people who had bad experiences, who are against coaches. But from where I sit right now and from the shops with whom I've talked to about coaching, the answer is get a coach. You should have done it years ago. That's what I'm hearing. Any thoughts you guys want to add to that?
If you're against it, why? What that would be my only thing. It's ask yourself why, as then kind of since they have all these ideas, who said you're the only one with the right idea?
Okay.
I would say don't ask yourself, ask your wife. He'll lead you in the right direction.
Very good. I appreciate your time from each of you as far as being able to join us on the panel here. And as I mentioned, we have a Facebook group. We're hoping that if you're not already connected in there, we'll get you connected in there and you'll be able to join in the continued conversation that will happen. I've also been adding live videos, usually on Tuesdays, early afternoons, where I'm just revisiting some of the conversation topics from this podcast and from the panel podcast. And again, I'm inviting more conversation to happen beyond that. I don't want the group to be a sales forum for different coaches or whatnot, but I'm very interested in hearing from the shop owners on their experiences from different coaches. And so also, if you switch from one coaching group to another and now you're loving Elite, or you're loving Rick White, or you're loving a Shop Fix or ATI, then I want to hear from you as well. Thank you for each of you for your time. As you probably already know, this podcast is paid for by AA Shop Marketing, a digital marketing company. And it's also the premise of the podcast, and that marketing company specifically is to help as many shops as we possibly can to grow and develop. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I'll see you in the Facebook group.